I think one of the biggest thoughts now for Jawan, is knowing that he still has a son in high school that gotta deal with the bullshit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He got one son on the basketball team, so that's cool. But Jet,
and see, once again, this is, you have to play the game. There's a bigger picture here, and like I said, the margin of error for us is a lot more narrow than we have none.
I pray, and going back to Martin Luther King and his "I Have a Dream" speech,
right?
I pray so wholeheartedly for that time to come where equality is equality for all.
I'm just rolling on the block. Research me, heard that. Podcast show about to start. Heard that. You should know if entertainment is your goal. You talking sports, you travel, yo. This the hottest pod show. Heard that. She got the juice. Everything she says is truth. If you don't know, now you know. All you ever gotta say is heard that. Heard that. Heard that. Heard that. Heard that. Look, all you ever gotta say.
All right. We're going to talk about the events that's been going down. I'm doing this last minute because we have been texting, messaging on Facebook, on Twitter, all that. So if you're a sports fan and you have been following the breaking news that just happened out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, myself and Monty are big Michigan fans. Incident took place last night when the Michigan Wolverines play the Wisconsin Badgers at Wisconsin. So yeah, my headphones are Sony. I got Sony's right here in case y'all couldn't hear me. An incident took place at the end of the game. Michigan had lost, I believe it was like 82 to 67. Let me see if I can let him in. Invite to join. I'm trying to invite you in. So, okay. So, and at the end of the game, such a little melee happened between coaches, and all of that transpired to where it caused Coach Howard to strike an assistant. If you watch the footage and everything very carefully, it showed a lot of things where the head coach for Wisconsin had put his hands on Coach Howard. Coach Howard reacted by grabbing onto Coach Guard's jersey, or not jersey, his uniform, whether the warm-up that he was wearing, doesn't matter. And then all of that came time. What's up, Monty?
What up? What up? What up?
What up? So I was trying to let the people know that you and I have been talking about this, as well as John Copeland and everybody. Monty, if y'all do not know, Monty Moss is an amazing announcer, friend of mine, has been on my podcast, will be on my podcast. We done the 68 tournament together. A lot of people were excited to have him on, but we have been talking about the repercussions of what has happened with Coach Howard. And now that it has come down, and I want to make sure that I get this correct on here, and I pulled it up, that Coach Howard has been officially suspended 5 games pending this through Michigan. That the Ward Manual has brought that down, as well as an apology, which I'll read momentarily. The NCAA will possibly be involved in this, to where it is going to be either all the 5 games, which is the rest of the season, because Michigan still has 5 games left in the season. That's not including the Big Ten tournament, which is afterwards. Right now, Phil Martelli has been named to take over the rest of the season with 5 games left on their schedule. That includes another meeting with Michigan State and Ohio State, and a few other games as well. 5 games, $40,000 is what Howard got slapped with, as well as 2 of the players, one of them being a starter, that is going to be suspended 1 game effective immediately. Chris Gard, the head coach of Wisconsin, has only been fined $10,000, and none of his assistants whatsoever has been penalized, suspended, or anything like that. There was an assistant coach who was petty enough to put on there his bloody tooth that he got hit with, and said, thanks for coming by Michigan, #on Wisconsin, to which that was quickly removed from his Twitter page. But many of us have captured that on our smartphones, and kindly have reminded that, to which this coach has gone on a blocking tour and has gotten rid of a lot of people. I don't want to go there, Monty, but I'm going to go there. And I really want to hear your thoughts, because it is a tricky situation to where you have a former player for the Michigan Wolverines, a 6'10", 6'11" black man. Guard, we'll roughly say about 5'9", 5'8" whatever. This is Juwan Howard's, I believe, third or fourth season as the head coach. Last year, he had a phenomenal run with the Michigan Wolverines, got us to the Big Ten title, outright title, got us close to the Final Four last year until we got stopped by UCLA. This is a different team this year, to where they have their struggles, currently sitting at 14-11 with 5 games left, which none of them are easy whatsoever, and are on the bubble of possibly either being in the first 4 of the 68 or missing it completely and going to the NIT, or missing that altogether. The penalties, I believe wholeheartedly, and I really want to hear your thoughts on this, are lopsided, in my opinion. Both coaches are at fault. Yes, Howard deserved the suspension. We all knew that was coming. He, whatever transpired to him, hitting an assistant, but we all know in the footage that assistant was also out of line, but no suspension for that assistant. What are your thoughts of this penalty, this suspension handed down to Howard, and basically a sweep under the rug, if you will, for Coach Chris Gard?
Well, first off, it's good to be back. I mean, of course, we're usually on podcast terms, so I think this is our first annual IG Live together. But my initial reaction is that, of course, Wisconsin got a slap on our wrist. I talked to John privately about this, and it's a slap on the wrist. I mean, come on. I mean, $10,000 in fines. Mm-hmm. When initially he had started the contact amongst, after the game, and, him touching Howard, X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So, Howard, of course, is going to get the bigger slap of the wrist. I mean, of course, he's suspended the last 5 games. And Phil Martelli, we trust. These last 5 games are very important for Michigan. Don't get me wrong. We do have Michigan State again on the lineup, and I think out of these 5 games, we just need to win 2 just to get in the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're in the bubble, but just to get back to the whole situation with the whole Howard situation, I think it's full of crap. Again, we know the stipulations. We know what has happened. And, for Howard to get 5 games is reasonable. I'm not going to say it's a bad idea. He shouldn't have got it. No, right. Suspension was what should have happened for Howard in this situation. But for Wisconsin's coach to just get a $10,000 fine on the wrist, I don't agree with that. Because had he not initiated the contact of him touching Howard, and whatever the case may be, we don't know the whole interpretation of what went down.
Right.
The coaches were wired up at the time, so we don't know. But for him to get a $10,000 fine and for him to just be let go on this situation is full of crap. And, again, with the whole Wisconsin assistant coach situation, that's a story for another day. I mean, in my opinion, I think he was the biggest instigator in this whole situation, because as you see in the video, he's coming over in the video and trying to, try something that's not really there with Coach Howard and just, give his say or so.
Yeah.
And, Frankie Collins, Michigan point guard, did a really good job of holding Coach Howard down in that situation because he was the closest to him. But, again, I disagree with the whole final ruling. I do believe that Wisconsin coach should have got a suspension at least a game or 2, because at the end of the day, if you're in a public place or even if you're in a private place, and you see a person you don't know or may not know, and that person comes on to you and puts their hands on you, how you're going to react is how you're going to react.
Right.
It's like, for example, if I didn't know John Copeland and John just put my hands on me in a public bar, I'm going to say, hey, fam, what the F you putting your hands on me for? What's the problem?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the whole ruling, I disagree with it. I do think Wisconsin's coach should have got a fine at least 2 games if it was up to me. But for him to get a slap on the wrist and a $10,000 fine is utterly bullshit. And I don't agree with it at all. But of course, Howard is quotably the wrong guy in this situation because of the 10-second rule and what has gone down with Wisconsin be up 10+ points. And look, do we need to fucking press for 17 seconds, for Wisconsin to beat the track? Absolutely not.
Right.
But for Wisconsin to call a timeout in that situation, I really disagree. Again, you're up 17 points.
Right.
The game is pretty much over. You just dribble the ball out, call it what it is. But for Wisconsin to call a timeout, I agree. Coach Howard's frustration at the time. And, I'm not surprised by the outruling of Howard with 5 games and, Wisconsin coach's $10,000 slap on the wrist. But I did expect it to be a bigger penalty for not also for the coaches, but for the players that was taking place. I mean, of course, Diaparte had took a swing to the face. And
right.
Of course, it's on film, it doesn't lie, but it is what it is. I mean, again, as I say, Coach Phil, we trust. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the whole overall view of not also with, Coach Howard being suspended 5 games, but of course with Wisconsin coach being slapped on the wrist for $10,000 fine?
I believe both of the gentlemen, leaders that they are, and both of them in a head coaching position, failed to be leaders on both sides. Both sides. It isn't just one person. It is also the responsibility of both men. To me, the suspension with Juwan Howard and nothing happening with Chris Gard, immediately when I was on Twitter and other social media outlets, immediately people brought up the race. They brought up race.
As expected.
As expected. And people, and many that were in the chat were trying to downplay that and say that it had nothing to do with race and that Juwan Howard was at fault for the whole entire thing, which obviously tape does not lie. That is not true. I'm just disappointed. And I was reading over Ward Manuel's statement. This is the statement he put out after the incident happened and after, both sides were split up and all of that. It says, today's disciplinary actions underscore the seriousness with which we take the incident that unfolded on Sunday. Simply put, there is no room at University of Michigan for the behavior we saw. We will learn from this incident as a department, work to improve ourselves while operating under a spotlight and move forward in a positive light. Okay. However, when it comes to the situation, when you have somebody that starts it, again, fault on both sides, someone places their hand on you and grabs you as you were trying to walk past. You see what I'm saying? So to how both guys, both head coaches, both leaders should have handled themselves in this situation is inexcusable. I agree with you that it was a slap on the wrist for Coach Gard.
Absolutely.
Should at least, and there's a couple, and here's the thing, it's a couple of assistants that should have been penalized as well on the Wisconsin bench. And that to me is where I was surprised at, but not stunned. I was surprised, but not stunned.
Well,
about that.
Why not stunned? Let's get to that. Why not stunned?
I had a feeling that they weren't going to receive anything. Because the bigger issue was the contact Coach Howard made with an assistant. And that is the image that sticks and stuck with everybody the higher ups on, you know, from Ward Manuel on the University of Michigan side to the NCAA to every media outlet that kept replaying that over and over and over and over again was the initial contact Howard made upside the head of an assistant. It wasn't the buildup of, it wasn't, you know, what started this whole entire thing and repercussed of. That was barely talked about. It was the initial contact. And then all of a sudden you got students pulling away students and coaches pulling away coaches and everything else and all this other stuff in Wisconsin. I mean, it's at Wisconsin, so it made it twice as worse because all the Wisconsin fans are cheering and everything else and then booing them off the court. And, you know, you got Michigan fans from every post on Instagram to Twitter to all this other stuff saying this is a bad look for the university. It's a bad look for Howard, to everybody calling for Howard to be fired and all this other stuff. I mean, it's been outlandish on both sides of it. But again, the thing is, both of these men need to be held accountable. And I believe wholeheartedly, besides the $10,000 fine, Coach Gard should have been suspended at least a game, possibly two.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I agree with the whole.
Thank you, Tuffy. Tuffy said he stands with Juwan Howard. Thank you,
look,
sir.
I stand with him too. And again, you know, John said it on multiple occasions in the group that we have on Facebook. I mean, look, anytime, regardless of the situation, when a physical, another human being puts their hands on you, you're going to react in the way as it to protect yourself. And we've seen it with Coach Howard's post-game press conference that, again, he thought that Wisconsin coach was intervening his personal space and that he had to protect himself. Now, we'll never hear the full story of, you know, Wisconsin coach, you know, whatever he said in time being to Coach Howard. I mean, of course, we've seen the video, them two barking at it for Coach Howard, obviously the swing. But in my opinion, you know, I think Coach Howard swing for a reason. I don't think Coach Howard, who he is as a person, of course, over the years, have we known him as a player and yet as a coach in the NBA, I don't think he'll just swing for no apparent reason. But it is what it is. And, of course,
what's up, Coach Sheed?
This is my dog. This is my dog, Coach Sheed, in the house.
What's up, Coach Sheed? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Let me give my introduction.
Yeah, because I want to hear your aspect of it, Coach. As a coach,
hey, look,
I want to hear I really want to hear your thoughts about this because of so much stuff that has been transpired in this. And again, as we've been discussing, and Monty and I have been going back and forth on his page. And it's just like, dude, we just need to get on video and talk about this and air this out because I want to involve an audience and I want to hear all different aspects and different sides of what people's thoughts are. And you being a coach, I know, you know, you can tell us a little bit about your background, if, you know, you coach college or, you know, high school or whatever you do, you know, putting yourself in that position. If it was you that was walking past the opposing players, past the head coach, and if someone grabbed your arm and something like that escalated, you know, what is your thought process and all of that?
Well, first of all, I know Juwan personally, had opportunity to coach his son and had several conversations with him. You know, if you know him as a person, that's not his character. You know, he wasn't there. And, you know, people say race doesn't play a factor, but it does. Because as a black male in today's society, you're not just going to put your hands on me if I don't want nothing to say to you.
Right.
So to me, there was a little bit of entitlement on the Wisconsin coach behalf, because you could see from Coach Howard's demeanor, he had nothing to do with the, you know, situation. He just was going to, you know, be respectful and walk through the line. Had he not done that, then that also would have been an issue, right? So as a head coach, as a leader, he's going to say, okay, you know what? I don't appreciate what happened, but I'm going to be respectful and walk through this line, right? Coach grabs his arm. That's wrong right there. Let's look at the root of it. Had Coach not grabbed his arm, we wouldn't be in this situation right now today.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, we don't know what was said by the assistant coach to cause Coach Howard to take a swing at him. Right? As a black male, you can say certain things that's going to trigger me regardless of my position. You know, it's hard to say that, you know, he should have did this, he should have did that. Yeah, it was easy to say that. We're not in that man's position. You know, I do feel like the coach from Wisconsin should at least receive one game. The assistant coach, one game. The one coach that had hit Terrence Williams several games.
Yeah.
Also, the coach at the end who made the inappropriate gesture.
Yeah.
You know, so that $10,000 to Wisconsin, that's
bullshit.
That's nothing. So, you know, I had this conversation last night and today, and, you know, I do feel like the 5 games, personally, I don't think Michigan wanted to do it, but they had to do it. You know, so that's why they say, okay, you know, we're going to give them the 5 games. And, of course, to some people, that wasn't enough. Like, they calling for this man's job. That's bullshit.
Come on.
That's bullshit. When you got Bobby Knight throwing cheers,
choking players.
Come on now, let's be real.
You got Tom Izzo. Was it not last season that his frustrated starting point guard was upset, and you see him grabbing him in the tunnel and just grabbing his jersey?
You got Izzo.
This isn't the first time they grabbed Tom Izzo, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's aggressive like that. No, John, come on in, John.
No, again, but for Tom Izzo in that situation with him pulling on a player, it's afforded because it's called accountability. But yet, for Coach Howard to defend himself when that Wisconsin coach got out of line, my God, he deserved to be fired. It's full of shit.
It's sad that it's a double standard. You know what I mean? And
it is a double standard.
It is.
But you know, if you know Coach Howard, you know, number one, he's definitely a competitor, but he's a man first.
Yeah.
You know, he's a man first.
Exactly.
So, you know, I do agree that, you know, the 5 games was something that they had to do to quote unquote put a little wood on the fire. But Wisconsin coach should have received at least 1 game.
I agree.
At least, you know, 1 game.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so gentlemen, and welcome, John. Welcome in. And so the 5 games remaining are right. No, there's a reason why I brought him to this platform because he's gonna keep it 100. He's gonna keep it 100. So listen, here's the 5 games remaining on Michigan's schedule that if the suspension holds up, and Martelli is our guy. We have Wednesday coming up where we're at home against the Rutgers. Okay, then we're at home against Illinois, who's ranked number 15 right now. Then on the 1st of March, we host Michigan State. We host Iowa, and then the end off after my birthday, we are at Ohio State. So you got 5
W.
Right
That's 5-0 right there. That's 5-0.
5-0.
That's 5-0.
You know, I'm a Michigan fan, but you know, realistically, if those guys win 4 games, you know, the thing is that if they, you know, should get into to the tournament, they're gonna say, well, they don't deserve to be in the tournament. You can't, you know, hurt those kids. You know what I mean? So if they go 4-1 and have a decent showing in the Big Ten tournament, yes, they deserve to be in. But I guarantee you, there's gonna be some people on the committee that's going to use this as a tool to not justify their earnings.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, let me hear from you, John, because like I was telling everybody, we were on Monty's page on Facebook and talking about this, and I think you and I are on the same wavelength when it comes to a double standard, and as far as and then the big thing that I said that people were noticing, it was a race thing. That you know, you got a former player from Michigan who, you know, was already criticized for somewhat having a hot head against Maryland last season, even though the coach from Maryland, who's no longer there, provoked the situation. And, you know, nothing happened and he was pulled away and got a technical and, you know, walked off the court, whatever. And, you know, then people had to drag him through the mud about he has no coaching experience and he shouldn't have been in this position and on and on and on. And then everybody was singing his praises last season because of the fact that he had a remarkable season with those, turned the team around after 1 year, you know, won the Big Ten title, got the team all the way to almost the Final Four. Right. And then now this, you know, season we are, you know, having the struggles. They're sitting at 14-11, 8-7 in the regular season with the 5 games that I had said. With that being said, John, and everything that transpired the past 24 to 48 hours, what is your thoughts about this because I really value your opinion, and especially the words that you had said on Monty's page. Because brother, we was right there. We was right there. We wanted to say what we wanted to say, but we was right there as far as how one-sided,
here we go,
for obvious reasons this is. So go ahead.
Listen, my thing with this is it goes back to what this is the narrative of the angry black man, right? So what you have is a coach who was rightfully so, he felt disrespected and he was pissed. And so now what you have, the narrative is like, oh, look, this black guy can't control himself. And when things don't go his way or he's angry, this is what happens. You know, they lash out, this, that, and the other. But what people are glossing over is the fact that this dude instigated this whole thing by grabbing this guy.
Correct.
This is what started all of this.
Yeah.
You grabbing somebody, listen, we can get technical if you want and everything. It's assault. You ain't supposed to be grabbing and touching on nobody. Because the bottom line is this. If this happens on the street, this is a completely different conversation. My husband just said the same
thing. Yes, my husband just said the same thing, John.
Because I don't care who you are. You grab me on the street like that, or you put your hands on me, we're gonna have a problem. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you're at work. It doesn't matter. You don't put your hands on another person. And the narrative seems to be that we're gonna gloss over the fact that this man put his hands on this guy. That's what agitated him. He was saying what he was saying and what have you. His idea was he was just gonna blow past this dude and not say anything.
Yeah.
He was just gonna walk past him. But once again, the privilege thing, and you thinking you're gonna make me stay somewhere and say and listen to what you have to say because you think you for some reason you think you're on that level. No, this is a problem. And so now what we get the narrative again is the angry black guy. That this guy's angry and he shouldn't have done this and he shouldn't have done that. But we're gonna gloss over the fact that this white guy instigated this whole thing. And if you even looking at the fines and looking how this all went down, he got a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
He literally got a slap on the wrist.
Say it again.
So don't tell me that they say, oh, you don't want, you guys always make it about race. It is about race. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it 100.
Not during our month either.
You're not doing that.
I mean, at the end of the day, for him to get a $10,000 fine, knowing that he's a multi-million-dollar coach with a multi-million-dollar contract with Wisconsin, is literally a slap on the wrist. Because at the end of the day, when people look at the footage, they'll think what they want. They'll have their opinions. But as you can see, Howard is clearly walking by. Look, it's the end of the game. Good game. We're going to go on to the next game. But the moment he put his hands on Coach Howard is when things went left. But for him to get a $10,000 fine, knowing that Wisconsin season is currently, in jeopardy on them to make the tournament, and for him to just, make this incident what it is, it's a slap on the wrist. And Coach Chief, you may know, Coach Howard more than I do, nor you may know how the Big Ten rolls more than I do. But for you, seeing what has transpired with the video, of course, with how things played out. How do you feel about this whole, $10,000 fine and everything goes home fine while Coach Howard gets a fine game suspension?
I mean, let's look at Wisconsin in itself as an institution. That's not a favorable institution for African Americans.
Amen.
That part.
You know what I mean? So
Amen.
Let's start right there. Education, but you know what I mean. Let's look at Wisconsin, right? A few years ago, they had the football kid, the Cephas kid, who was accused of rape, right? Got kicked out of school, dragged through the mud, all that, to do what? Found out he was innocent, and now they want to welcome me back in. You know what I mean? Like, nah. So that right there shows you what it's about. So people can say what they want to say, but you have to know what institutions you're dealing with. As an African American and as a coach on EYBL, I'm going to be honest. There are several institutions that I would not advise a kid to go to just because of how unfavorable it would be for us. And that's just being real. And then you look at Juwan Howard. You know what I mean? This man, NBA, it was a coach in the NBA. You know what I mean? Had opportunity to coach in the NBA.
NBA as a player, a champion.
Right, as a champion. You know what I mean?
NBA champion.
You know, when I said before that if I had a son that was being recruited by Coach Howard, absolutely he's going to play for that man. So you have to know him to understand, you know what I mean, his actions. Now, again, you know, no matter what, when things of that nature, we're supposed to prevail and take the high road. But look, we men. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We're men.
We grown ass men, and you're not gonna treat me like I'm a kid.
Let's be real. Had the roles been reversed,
go there.
Go there.
Say it again. Say it again.
What would have happened? You know what I'm saying? So
say it again.
You know, people. It's unfortunate, but yes, it's about race. You know what I'm saying? So you know, I feel like you know, University of Michigan just had to do that just to kind of put a little water on the fire. You know what I mean? I think they stand by Juwan. And like you mentioned earlier, winning cures all. If these guys had a winning season and, was top 25, it wouldn't have
been a big deal.
It wouldn't have been a big deal.
You know what I mean?
Hell no. Hell no.
You know what I mean?
Here's the thing that I'm so glad you three are here as Black men, okay? To educate everybody that's in the audience and watching right now, and to have that perspective of how hard it is, especially when you are in the limelight and you have the spotlight on you. That spotlight is a little bit bigger for everything you do, to where you go to who you hang out with, to where you go and eat, to every little thing, right? So with him, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, I believe there's only 2 Black coaches that are in the Big Ten. I believe there's one Indiana. Indiana's coach, Juwan Howard, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you look at the NFL that now has another head coach, because for a moment there was Mike Tomlin, and now they have Byron Leftwich now that is going to be the head coach. I can't recall one of the teams that he's going to be the head coach of that he's got hired on. So with that being said, and people downplaying the fact of race being a big issue here, people have to know, and I believe wholeheartedly, especially for Black men with their passions and what they want to do, and as far as the sports realm is concerned, it seems like that they have to work quadruple times as harder up the ladder to get some kind of interview, to get some kind of, look at, as far as, we could be interested in them leading our program, a big time program, and everything like that there. So what was sickening to me is that people were trying to fire Juwan as if he murdered somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we knew the penalty was going to probably be harsh because of the fact of the repercussions that took down.
Yeah.
But from your perspective, gentlemen, and you had went there, Coach Sheed, about if the roles were reversed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
From this perspective, now that you have his assistant coach taking over, you got these student athletes that are looking at this. You got the media that is running around with this story about how from he should be suspended for the rest of the season to he should have been fired and everything else there. How do you think, from your opinion, and either one of y'all can answer that, does it leave a tarnished mark on Juwan Howard's reputation as a head coach?
I think they wanted. Yeah, I think they wanted to, and they will try to. That will be the narrative with him whenever he comes up. Unfortunately, like some of the things you pointed out, for us, the standard is different. We are held to a different standard on every level, whether it's work, whether it's sports, it doesn't matter. The leash for us is shorter in regards to the mistakes that we can make. And they listen, it takes a long time for them to hire us and a quick time for them to fire us.
Exactly.
That's just
we saw that from Miami Dolphins,
we saw with
right?
Brian Flores. He went 9-7 2 years in a row. He was winning and they got rid of him. So the standards for us is different. And so, and Flores is also a perfect example of when things didn't go right with that ownership. The minute he walked out the door, they tried to paint him as a troublemaker. They were like, oh, there was things going on in his organization that weren't running right, blah, 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 blah. Well, Juwan Howard's about to get the same thing. He's about to get the same kind of treatment where they're like, oh, yeah, well, he's doing okay. But remember when? It's not going away. This is going to be something, unfairly or not, that is going to follow him no matter where he goes. And that goes with the standards that we are treated with and the way that we are handled. Like I said, you have coaches that, listen, the average coach, in whether it's college, pro, whatever, they give you 5 years to turn a program around.
Yeah.
That's average. That's on the low end. Right. They give us 3. If it's not
Maybe
turned
3.
around in 3 years, you
Gone.
out looking for another job.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it. And you're not going to get, I mean, just like we saw this round of coaching, there were 9 openings. And you're going to tell me there was not one qualified dude that outside of
color
and color that could get their jobs?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So this is what we're up against, and especially in sports and especially in the NFL, this is exactly what you're up against. There's a different standard for us. Everything is different for us. And yeah, we don't, especially if you want to play that game and you want to be a part of that, you have to play the game. But you also have to know that you have to literally walk a line of perfection in order to stay in that game. And that kind of pressure to have to do that day in and day out, year in and year out, is exhausting.
Yeah.
So
Let me get your opinion.
Imagine.
Let me get your opinion on that, Monty, of what John just said, which was just spot on. When a person of color gets the opportunity of a lifetime, the work that they put in to get to a head coaching position, whether it be football, whether it be basketball, whether it be baseball, why is it that, and maybe just me, and I really want to hear your opinion on it. Why should someone go into this role? They're saying, you're our guy, you're the man, you're going to lead this team, everything else, but still have a target on their back. You got your dream job, you got your opportunity because you worked your tail off. But why should a person in this limelight, in this light, have that target still on their back? Like, yeah, I have my job, I have the contract, I have the opportunity to turn this team into the Super Bowl talented team, or an NBA championship team, or an NCAA championship, but still have that target on their back with, if I breathe wrong, if I do something wrong, if I say something to somebody wrong, or anything else like that, I'm out, like John said, 3 years, maybe 2, out the door.
Well, I think the level of expectations will never leave. I think the level of expectation is always going to be there, especially when you're a black coach. I mean, going through the recent hires of NFL coaches, I think it's a blasphemy that offensive coordinator from the Kansas City Chiefs, Eric Bieniemy, has not been interviewed for as many times that he should have been. Of course, let's not get off the record that, of course, he's coaching the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator. They've been in the last 5 years, they've been number 3 offensively in the last 5 years. But that there, as much as a resume perspective, should offer him the door to be interviewed by numerous of organizations throughout the NFL. Of course, with Andy Reid being his big mentor, we all know the Andy Reid coaching tree. They wind up doing well in life outside of course, him being the offensive coordinator. I did expect him to be interviewed for numerous jobs. Of course, it didn't work out that way because of whatever political situation that may have happened.
You know what they're saying about him? They're saying Mahomes doesn't like him, right? They're saying a lot of the players doesn't like him. And they're saying that towards the end of the season, Andy Reid was telling the camera crew not to show him. So what is that saying? If this man is getting you to the championship, 4 or 5 consecutive years?
Yeah.
Come on now. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not your coach to be liked. I'm your coach to push you to make you better.
That part.
You know what I mean? So, like in life, I tell people, I ain't got to be your friend, but I can be friendly. You know what I'm saying? So now you're saying because Mahomes doesn't like this man that he shouldn't warrant an opportunity. Again, that's bullshit.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And see, listen, and they always float these narratives out when they don't want you to get something. We didn't hear anything about Brian Flores when Brian Flores was coaching.
Right.
No.
We didn't hear them float anything out until he was done. When they got rid of him, these things started floating out about he wasn't getting along with people, all this mess. Now we're hearing the same thing about Bieniemy. the thing is, when they get you and you're walking out of the door, they use this game plan. They've been using it forever. Their thing is to smudge your character.
Right.
And to make it seem like, you know what, you're not a team guy, or you're not in whatever it is they're doing. This is how they do it. And so what this does is, so now for the next team that comes along, they say, oh man, well, so-and-so said you're not a team player, or, you hard to get along with this, that, well. No, that's not what it is. Right. What it is character assassination, because they don't want you to get the next thing. Right. So the enemy, we've watched the last, 2 or 3 years, that jobs have passed them by. They passed them by. They passed them by. Now all of a sudden that he's also, because what it is, a part of this is he's looking at other options, because he's saying, well, you know what, it's not working here as far as me getting another job. So there's rumors that he's talked about looking at college and looking at going to other places, so that he can kind of put himself out there and separate himself from Andy Reid. Well, once that started to get out, now we're starting to hear all of this back stuff about, oh, well, he's this, or Mahomes don't like him, or Reid don't like him, and this, that, and the other. They have to dirty you up. Yeah. They got to dirty you up. They don't have a choice. This is what they do. Right. This is how it works.
And it's a rarity. It's a rarity. And I was talking about this the other day with somebody. We were chatting on Twitter, and it's interesting now as a milestone that we celebrate Mike Tomlin, because how many black coaches do you know have passed the 10-year threshold? Mike Tomlin will be going to his 16th season this fall on one team.
See, the advantage with Mike Tomlin is with the right organization.
That part.
Think about it. Whoa. Listen, bro, the Steelers have had 3 coaches in their entire tenure.
Yes.
They don't get rid of coaches just because.
They don't have a revolving door.
Hold on, John.
It's not a revolving door.
Hang on. You're missing the point. The right organization that supports the head coach no matter what the narrative
Absolutely. Is. But like I said, you have to understand, this is why we talk about this, and I understand where coaches struggle with this. You can't just take any job. Yeah. Because what it is that they want you to take bad jobs, because then when you're not doing well and things are going sideways, it's easier for you to get rid of you. Right. What Tomlin did is the Pittsburgh basically followed what they believe in. The Rooney Rule is based on them. Yeah. They hired this guy because they felt he was the best guy for this organization. And they have stuck with this guy because they know that they have the right coach. But it also has to do within the organization. Like I said, the Steelers in their existence have 3 coaches. That's it. They're not big in turning people over and getting rid of people because you have a bad season or 2. It doesn't work that way. And some of these other owners they're not built that way. Like, they want to win now. They're gonna turn people over. They're gonna do whatever it is they have to do if they think that's what's going to work. So the black coaches are at a disadvantage because the bottom line is you want a job. You want that head coaching title next to your name. Unfortunately, the jobs that basically are available to you are shit jobs. And so then you don't even get the 5 years to turn the organization around. Right. You get 3. And then if you're not in them 3 years, you out. And sometimes you don't even get that. We've seen black coaches get fired after a year or 2. Right.
And it continues to happen. And that's the sad narrative
it's not
of
stopping.
it. Well, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. Go ahead, Monty.
I don't either. I don't.
Well, to John's point, I do condemn not also the Rooney family, but also Coach Mike Tomlin and hiring Mike Flores. Of course, we all know Mike Flores has an ongoing lawsuit against the NFL.
Brian Flores.
And let's not take away the fact that the position that he's hired, of course, linebacker coach, of course, or defensive coordinator. His defensive terms in New England is ongoing, legendary. Of course, top 5. Regardless of the last 5 years that he was there in New England, of course, we're resulting in a Super Bowl champion. But again, I don't think that with his firing from Miami, had it not been for Mike Flores, I don't think, Coach Tomlin would be in a job right now if it was up to me personally, because of what was going on with the recent hires, of course, with, Denver hiring the coach that they hired that I don't agree with because, again, not an experienced player, but it's all a buddy system. Let's just keep it what it is.
Listen, I have no problem with Tomlin hiring Flores.
Me either.
Nobody else is going to do
either.
it. Right. And this is the way the system works. These people hire their friends all of the time, whether they're qualified or not. So the fact that Mike Tomlin looked out for this dude is like, I'm gonna make sure you got a job.
Regardless,
that's how it's supposed to be. That's what I want.
Yeah.
So I don't have. We know he's overqualified for the job. We know that.
Right.
But the fact is, he is protecting his guy, and he is like, you are going to stay here. Right. You're going to stay in this loop, and we're going to keep you at the forefront. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
Listen, we watch even. I mean, come on. You looked at Dallas, but Mike McCarthy went there and hired his best friend, who sucked, Mike Nolan, who was a terrible coordinator.
Yeah.
Because that was his best friend. I'm gonna get you a job.
Say it again.
He's like, I'm going to get you a job. So he hired him to get him a job. This is how they work. So why shouldn't we do the same thing? If one of ours is out there and it's like, and you know what's going on, why not be like, listen, man, I got you. Don't worry about it.
Right.
This is a statement. Period. This is a statement from Juwan Howard. And Coach Sheed, I want to ask you a question after I read it. It says, after taking time to reflect, this is Coach Juwan Howard, on what happened, I realized how unacceptable both my actions and my words were and how they affected so many, and I am truly sorry. I am offering my sincerest apologies to my players and their families, my staff, my family, and the Michigan fans around the world. I would like to personally apologize to Wisconsin's assistant coach, Joe Krabenhoft. That's really big of him to do so. And his family. That's
spin control.
Whew, yes. I wonder how many rough drafts did he have to take that before
he went through a bunch of paper to get that one together.
Yeah. Lastly, I speak a lot about being a Michigan man and representing the University of Michigan with class and pride. I did not do that, nor did I set the right example in the right way for my student athletes. I will learn from my mistake, and this mistake will never happen again. No excuses. Coach Sheed, from this, 5 games get held up, regular season, we go into the Big Ten tournament. How do you think that everyone, because Wisconsin is busy playing the victim here. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it 100. How do you see what from you knowing Juwan? How do you think he comes back from this when he's able to go back and resume his coaching duties with his students on the bench during the start of the Big Ten tournament?
Well, like I said earlier, winning cures all, right? So take this 5-game lick, comes back in the Big Ten tournament, they do well and go to the tournament. And at the end of the day, any major university, that's their role, is to get to the NCAA tournament, right? So you want to get to the tournament, and you're still going to have the naysayers saying X, Y, and Z. But in my opinion, if he gets to the tournament, which I think he should, it's going to kill the noise. But one of the conversations that I had today with a friend of mine, they said, well, how would that affect his recruiting? And I said, in our community, it won't affect him.
It won't.
You know what I mean?
Zero.
Because again, you have other people saying, oh, yeah, see, like you mentioned earlier, John, the angry black man and all this and that.
Yep, I for design.
In our household, we like, shit, he lucky he ain't getting nothing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But so in our community, Coach Howard still would be able to come and recruit our kids. Because you're not going to just put your hands on me, number one.
No.
Number two, Hunter Dickinson, the big man from out of Maryland. His thing was, hey, we're a family. So we're going to rock with ours. So, I'm sure some of those Michigan alumni that want Juwan out didn't like that.
No.
But Hunter is a nice player, right? As far as talent wise. And I know a year or so ago, me and Monty had a conversation. If you were 4 or 5 man and Juwan is recruiting you, why not go learn from the best?
Right.
That's right.
So,
that part. There you go.
You know what I mean? So again,
Yeah.
I can't see that hurting his recruitment. Yes, down year, COVID, you know what I mean, did a lot of things, but they wasn't saying shit when Juwan was winning, was a year or so ago, right?
Yeah,
when
it was last year.
Last year. They wasn't saying nothing. You know what I mean? Now all of a sudden, a down year, you know what I mean?
Well,
and it's only down because they got young players.
Right.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing.
They got young players. Now, in my opinion, I coach Musa Diabate as well. Musa is a pro, but he's young, right?
Very young. Very young.
The kid from Mount Vernon. He's young.
Caleb Houston.
Caleb Houston.
Caleb Houston, right? But again, those games in the beginning of the year where they were struggling, I mean, they're turning the corner. Unfortunately, this happened, and maybe Juwan itself, is a little frustrated because he knows that his team is better than this. But hell, you can't put the ball in the bucket. for those kids.
Right.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
And
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, and here's my thing to Coach Shee's comment. I mean, at the end of the day, the only upperclassmen that we have on this Michigan roster, of course, is Hunter Dickerson and
Eli Brooks.
And Eli Brooks.
Right.
Outside of that, we have a very young roster, and you know, Frankie Collins of the world, and Caleb Houston, and you know, things of that nature. So the expectations are a little bit different than what it was a year ago because of
I forgot about Brandon Johns too.
And Brandon Johns, because we had an upperclassman. But yet, Michigan has gone through the motions of having a younger roster because of, when you have upperclassmen and you try to input that younger class perspective, it doesn't work out as planned because the younger players, as in Frankie Collins, are not developing as we expect them as a university to, of course, insert because of what the offense has may be. So, of course, Hunter Dickerson has been carrying the load offensively. But, again, I do think with the suspension, it's no different because of what Coach Phil Martelli has developed over the last 20 years as a coach, and also what he's as a system because of what he's been there already with Coach Howard the last 2 years. I do think the players will buy into whatever he has going into practice plans as well as what going into game plan. And this is a very tough stretch for Michigan. The next 5 games, next 6 games, they got to win 2 of the last 5, no doubt about it. They got to beat Illinois. They got to beat Michigan State. If they could somehow come out with a win, both games, in my opinion, I do think they're tournament ready. Rather than a 10 seed, rather than an 11 seed, whatever seed the NCAA may place them, I do think they're NCAA tournament ready. But I do think the players need to just block out the noise. Howard suspended the last 5 games, no problem.
And that's going to be harder said than done. And that's why what I was going to say, piggybacking on that, my thing is this, is that he's made his statement. He's apologized. He said what he's had to say. If I am him, I'm not talking about this again. We're done with this. I said what I had to say. You read my statement. You know what it is. So you're not going to – every press conference is not going to be me talking about this issue. We're done with that. So that is how you help your team block that noise out.
For people that were joining in, welcome everybody that's joining in. I got Coach Sheed, I have John Copeland, I have Monty Moss on right now. We're discussing the penalty, then the suspension that was brought down to Juwan Howard the last several hours about him being suspended 5 games with a $40,000 fine. Wisconsin's head coach, Chris Gard, was only fined $10,000, not suspended. Neither one of his assistants were suspended. They did have 1 student athlete that is suspended 1 game, 2 for on the Michigan bench. Suspended immediately. That will be when Michigan plays the Rutgers. As far as Wisconsin, the 1 player that's suspended, they will be going at Minnesota this Wednesday. And then Wisconsin's rest of their schedule is at Rutgers on the 26th. Then they're at home hosting number 4 Purdue. And then the last game of the season, they are at home hosting Nebraska, which that's going to be, you know, pretty much easy for them. And then we go into the Big Ten tournament.
There it is, W.
I will say this, though. The one thing that I do like with Martelli at the helm, again, with coaching, you have to be able to relate to your players. Martelli was at St. Joe's, you know, Philly kids. He can relate to those players. You know,
for years.
So, you know what I mean? And, you know, those guys, you know, they respect Coach Martelli. So I do think that the transition is going to be a little easier because Martelli can relate to those players.
Right. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a lot for them to navigate. Like this, you know, it's eventually this will start to die down. But right now it's fresh. It's in, you know, pizza all over the place. Like we literally, the minute it happened, we saw it everywhere. And like I said, everybody had their opinions, everybody had their narratives, and this is where we're at. So it's not something that, you know, was just going to go away. There needed to be a quick resolution to it. Do we agree with the resolution? Of course not, because we know what it's based on and we know why things worked out the way that they did. But at this point, like I said, even himself, he has to block out the noise and he has to keep this moving because he's the head of this program. He's the face of this program. So he has to make sure that this ship is headed in the right direction because, like we said, he's walking a fine line. He can't make a bunch of mistakes. This was he got away with the thing with Turgeon, and he caught a little heat from that, and everybody's just kind of glossed it over. It's like, all right, what happens. This is incident number 2. So now you really are walking a very fine line, because honestly, like Coach T said, there's plenty of alumni that are like, look, we want him gone. So if he crosses a line again, or he steps out of space again,
that alumni volume will be loud enough to where it's Plus, you also have the media. The media today, since yesterday, have been on the road with, and you know how much it's and I don't care what anybody says. The media has the influence on either they like you or they don't. Right. And the more the media talks about it, and I can say a la Jim Caldwell when he coached the Lions.
There you go.
I can go there for another topic for another day.
That man left that job, and they still ain't won no games.
There it is. Thank you.
But Marissa, to your point, here's my thing with John, and of course she went in. How do you guys really feel with this whole narrative of that? Yet here, Coach Howard, he's got a 5-game suspension, but yet the Wisconsin coach gets a $10,000 fine with a slap on the wrist going forward.
I told you how I felt. It's bullshit. Like, listen, we know that this was racially done. We know that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is what it was. You know what? He took a swing at the guy. He was wrong. We get all of that. Right. But the fact that you are not penalizing this guy for putting his hands on this guy and instigating this incident, that is an issue. You can try to spin it any way you want to. We saw what we saw. And Juwan told you the reason he reacted the way that he did was because this man put his hands on him. And we know, listen, we know what it is. If we on the street and somebody grab you like that, or they put their hands on you, it's a whole different story.
And here's the thing. Desmond Howard came to his defense. Jalen Rose came to his defense. But the one that has a bigger platform that took majority of those key players from ESPN to Fox is Colin Cowherd. And he sided majority of it with Howard. He said both men acted unrationally, and both of them should have been suspended. He did not like the fact of what went down.
No, he didn't like it at all. He was very adamant about the fact that this guy instigated this whole thing. Like, this guy should have never put his hands on him, and he should be held as culpable as Howard should have been held to.
The reason why I'm saying this is because you don't hear the key big names of Stephen A. Smith, of Mike Greenberg, or any of those there that have a platform as big, if not as big, as Colin Cowherd's. Those things. You have a white man with a big audience that is saying this, that both of these guys should be held accountable. Not just one side of it.
Come on, talk to me, Coach G.
Because if Stephen A. says it, then he will get backlash, right? So it's okay for a white man to say it.
Right.
But, even like Jason Williams and all that. Come on, like, y'all know what it
is.
And
they are receiving backlash. Desmond received
backlash.
Talk
to me, Coach G. Hold on, Talk to me, Coach G. Talk to me.
So when we were little, right, and you got in a fight with your sibling, what did your parents say? Who hit who first? Who touched who first?
Who touched who first? Yeah.
If you touch who first, you got to get his ass whooping. You know what I'm saying? So look at this right here. He put his hands on that man first. Regardless, in life, we have to look at the root causes of things.
Yeah.
It was a chain reaction. The Wisconsin coach grabbed Juwan. Juwan told him, don't put your hands on him. Right? He felt entitled to, and this just me saying it, nigga, you gonna hear what I gotta say.
Exactly.
Say that.
That was exactly what that moment was. And that is why Juwan felt the way that he did. Because it was like, you were going to listen to what I have to say because of who I am.
Because he said, I'll remember that. He said, I'll remember that when it came to that timeout. He said, I'll remember that. And then he having his hand on his wrist like that. Who?
So
when Desmond brought that up, when Jalen Rose brought that up, they received backlash. But when Colin said that Chris Gard initiated it first, everybody also want to retweet it and say, yeah, you right, Colin, all this other stuff. But a fresh 10 hours ago, you were the same individuals that was like giving Desmond Howard and Jalen Rose a hard time.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. There it is.
I think one of the biggest thoughts now for Juwan, you know, is knowing that he still has a son in high school that gotta deal with the bullshit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, he got one son on the basketball team, so that's cool. But you know, Jet,
and see, once again, this is, you have to play the game. There's a bigger picture here. And like I said, the margin of error for us is a lot more narrow than we have none when it comes to that. Because I guarantee you that is something that he's thought about. His son still has to come through all of this. His son still has to deal with this. So there's so many levels to it.
Right.
It's not just about him. There's a bunch of other people that this affects, and he knows that.
Right.
So he knows at this point, like, he can't have any more missteps. That's the bottom line. At this point, he can't misstep at all.
One thing about Coach Howard, his family means everything.
Everything.
You know what I mean? So again, you know, my opinion is my opinion, but you know, him putting that statement out there, you know, was that the right thing to do? It was. You know what I mean?
I just want to see what his office looked like and all that crumpled up paper.
Me too.
You know,
Me too.
Do I think he was having some thoughts in his head when he was writing it down? I'm sure he probably was. You know what I mean?
I guarantee it was.
You know,
because he, as a man, listen. That is a tough thing to swallow, especially when you feel you've been disrespected like that.
Absolutely.
And so now you have to swallow your pride because you want to keep your job. You want because listen, the bottom line is this. If you're in there, you can affect change.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not in there, you can't.
Right.
So your whole thing is like, even though you might want to say things and do certain things, if you're outside looking in, you can't do that. So you have to stay inside. So it was, I guarantee you, he had to swallow a lot of pride. It was just like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this because there's a bigger picture here. I'm looking out for my kids. I'm looking out for my family. I'm looking out for all these folks. So I'm going to do this. But yeah, I don't like this. I guarantee you, if you ask him this 10 years down the line when this is all over, how he felt about it, he's going to tell you it was bullshit.
Right.
Because he didn't want that. But you got to play the game. And that's what this is. This is a game.
As we say, it's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
The thing that I want to say too, and I'll probably end with this, and you all can definitely add your narratives to it for sure. I had to pull a lot of receipts on some of these fools that were on social media because of the fact that I'm sure it is not the first time that Juwan Howard has been called any kind of name. Okay. I know that from the documentary that was beautifully put out for 30 for 30 about the Fab Five, and Jalen Rose spoke about it. Ray Jackson spoke about it. Juwan Howard spoke about it. But to attack a man's family, to go after their sons, to call Juwan Howard what I won't say on this program, is absolutely ridiculous, and it doesn't shock me that it came from majority. And I'm sorry if you're from Wisconsin on this feed, but this is not the first time that Wisconsin so-called fans have used their white privilege to call out black players, black coaches, or any of that there. It is sad in this day and age still that we have to, when a black man that has a spotlight put on him, that people feel that it's okay to drop the N-word, what he was acting like. They feel that behind the Twitter fingers and the Instagram hands, that they feel that it's important on their end and boastful to drop that kind of language. And I'm calling you all out right now, and I did several of them, and they quickly blocked me, and I could care less. Because if you are that bold to go after a black man's family, I'm going to be bold and pull up every single receipt that you have. With that being said, gentlemen, when does it end? When does the narrative of someone who makes a mistake of color, when does it end with the racism, the bigotry?
When we get our own, that's when it would end. When we get our own, when we get our own NBA league, when we start sending our top athletes to these HBCUs, when we get our own, that's when it's going to end. Because now, what can they say? That's when it ends. When we get our own.
I agree. Yes.
I agree. I mean, none of these systems were ever built for us. They were built off of us, but they were never built for us.
Agree.
And so we and with the wealth that we have and the influence that we have, we can do our own thing. We don't need them to do things. We just have to realize that. We just have to understand that. And so that's why, you know, when Deion signing the #1 football player, that's why it's important to HBCUs, because basically what it's saying to these kids is, listen, if you have the talent, they're going to find you.
Yep.
Doesn't matter where you go. You can support your own. You can be a part of that legacy, and they will find you.
Yeah.
And that is what is important, and that's where we have to get back to. Because if you know the history, especially if you know the history of the NFL started going to HBCUs way back in the 50s and 60s, recruiting these guys.
Right.
Because they realized that that's what the talent was. And if you look at the Hall of Fame, there's a whole bunch of HBCU guys that are Hall of Famers.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've gotten away from that. So we have to get these kids back to these schools and letting them know, look, if you're talented as you are, they're going to find you. This is not going to affect you being a part of being a pro or what have you, because you have the talent, but you want to leave the legacy behind, and you want to help the next man that's coming up behind you and bring them up. That's what this is about, because we've seen it when you go to these big universities, Michigan, Wisconsin, all of them. Listen, you go, you're good for the 4 years that you're eligible or so to play. When you're done, you're done. They don't care about you. They don't care about your afterlife. They're not looking out for you. And a perfect example, and this is also what Juwan is dealing with also. He is dealing with the residual. But he's dealing with the residual effect of the Fab Five. You got to remember, the Fab Five changed college basketball. Fab Five changed basketball, period. Right. And there's still a whole bunch of people that are angry about that. And so now you have this guy who was a part of that legacy, and he's back at that school, and in their mind, they're saying, oh, we're going back to that. Like, we know what the Fab Five is about. We know what that is. So we going back to that. So now we can't have that. So when something like this happens, they say, see, you know, they was doing that same mess when they was all balling together. And so now he's a coach. He ain't learned nothing. He's doing the same thing. So this is where we're at with it. And so this is why I say his rope that the tightrope he's walking on is very thin, because there's people that are supposed to be his people and his alumni that want him to fail. Right. They want him to fail. They're aching for it. They've been looking. This season for them was what they wanted. They wanted him to be like, oh man, they ain't as good as they was last year. So we need to think about getting rid of this dude. Right. So if he has another down year.
John, that's so good. Do you think that they also still wanted him to fail when they announced? Because again, I don't know, like Monty and you, when it was announced that he was becoming the head coach, the comments.
Of course.
Listen, come on!
You saw the documentary.
Come on!
You saw the commentary that these kids endured when they were there as athletes. So now you have this guy going back there to head and be the face of this program. But them same people are still there. That same alumni is still there. So the thought process hasn't changed. It's just now they're like, oh, well, now he's a coach. So now those kids, the same kids that he went to college with, that were giving all of that vitriol to all of them guys, now are alumni, and they're older and they have money, and now they're the boosters and they're the people who has to answer to. So they have more money. So now it's like all of a sudden, so now the dudes that you was calling all these names and calling them out their names, all this stuff, he's the head coach of your program. They didn't want him in that job. No. By any means, they didn't want him in that job. He was the last person they wanted in that job, because he represents something in the past that they didn't like.
Yep.
So now they're like, okay, we're gonna give you, you here. We ain't got no choice because they hired you, so you here. Right. But if you start messing up, we're going to get rid of you in a heartbeat. And we're going to get the lightest, whitest guy that we can get in here next.
Yep.
Like, that's what this is about. I mean, so this is why I say for him, this was a very dangerous situation, because this was strike two. Unfortunately. And so he has to be very careful now going forward, because now they're looking for things in order to get rid of him. Right. That's just what it is. So if he has another bad season, or there's another incident or anything along those lines, if there's any kind of violations, it's a wrap for him. Right. So
and it goes back to what you said, Coach Sheed. It's the winning. The winning has to start, and the winning's going to speak for itself, and the winning's going to be volumes. Right.
So two things. So as a basketball coach, when I see these coaches, you'd be surprised how many of these HBCU coaches say, oh man, I can't get that kid. And I tell a coach, you can't get no kid that you don't recruit. So because this kid is a 5-star kid, doesn't mean you can't recruit that kid. It's all about relationships and developments. You know what I mean? So if we want to change the narrative, these coaches that's at these HBCUs, they can't be afraid to recruit these high-profile kids, not thinking that they're going to go to the school or that school. So
Absolutely.
let's start right
You're
there.
absolutely correct.
But at the end of the day, let's be real. No matter what we do, we still a Nick.
I agree.
That's
Wholeheartedly.
it. That's it.
Wholeheartedly. Gentlemen, I love the perspective. I really do. Coming from a coach and someone that, you know, is as a fan like myself, and hearing all of that perspective, and then you all representation as Black men, Black intelligent men, Black smart men. This what needs to be seen, and coming from you three of the stuff that just transpired and the stuff that's still going on. And I'm sure we're going to continually read about it. Something else may happen, a coaching change, somebody gets removed from position, you know, on and on and on. I mean, it's the horrible revolving wheel that will just continue to turn. Even with a bunch of nails in the tire, it'll get patched up and still keep moving on until the narrative and the change of that is, okay, they're a person of color, they got the qualifications, let's give them a shot, and let's truly back them up without any disclaimers. Because you know, you see those commercials on there saying this will cure a headache, but the following side effects will happen: headache, backache, earache, your fingers will fall off.
There it is.
When you bring someone of color on board and knowing they have the credentials, let's fully believe in them and let's trust them to lead the team. And if they are not, if they truly are not of the qualifications and what they got hired to do several seasons down the road, then remove them. Well, then you then have a reason to, but not just be a one and done. And I hope that we can get to a place and get to a space where it is that we, you know, all of us four are talking about, oh my gosh, we're seeing an actual change. John has a son that is phenomenal in football and will have an opportunity, if his passion continues to be, to get to the next level and then beyond. But some of the narratives have to change, where these young men, especially these young ladies and those that have color, Black and brown skin, do not have to walk somewhere, show off their God-given talents, and have a target on their back. If they're at the wrong place at the wrong time, they're, you know, calling their parents saying, I got picked up by a police officer for nothing that I did. I mean, that kind of thing. I pray, and going back to Martin Luther King and his I Have a Dream speech. I pray so wholeheartedly for that time to come where equality is equality for all.
Hey, I'm about to get me a drink now. I'll talk to y'all later,
got me
man.
a timer.
Hey, HT, man, catch up, man.
All right.
Catch up, man.
Peace.
Thank you, Coach She. They got me a timer on this, but John, talk about your show and how people can join you on Wednesdays. You and Monty, Rakia, and Paul.
Yeah, you can follow us on my page, which is John Copeland Jr. 23. So it's the Gentleman's Corner. We're on every Wednesday from actually 9 o'clock Eastern time. 6 o'clock Pacific time. It's basically we talk on different topics, you know, as far as relationships, communication, things of that nature. It is a safe space. It is a judgment-free zone. It's something where we felt that we wanted to bridge this communication gap between men and women. And so we talk about conversations that are not being had.
I think that you are a very bright, talented woman in CQ. Your voice is heard. I think that besides numerous occasions that I've been on your podcast to, you know, go over NCAA tournament, or rather bracket, or whatever the case may be, you've been a dominant woman force in the CQ world, putting your platform on the line and allowing guys like me and John and Coach She come on and voice our opinion. Yeah, you are a woman of sports, but I want to give you flowers that you are a woman of color. And I would be wrong if I didn't have the opportunity to come on here with John and to voice our opinions as Black men, as well as Coach She voices opinion as a Black man, and having the platform that we have with you. I do think that your voice is heard, and it's an honor. I'll say for myself, it's an honor to come on here with, of course, the greatness of the greatest host in America, John Copeland, 23.
Yes, sir.
And of course, the greatest AAU basketball coach of all time, and of course, in Coach Sheed, Rasheed Wesley. Let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you, and I love you. And anytime you get to call me and John on, it's a great honor. And anytime I'm alongside this bald head dude right here,
just make sure he's not drinking. Can we just do that?
Everybody in the chat is telling him to, go and drink some water immediately. So
yes, man. Yo, go listen, bro. Go hydrate.
Water won't do.
Go hydrate. Do whatever you got to do. Take a nap. Whatever it is you got to do, man.
John, I'm calling you after the show. I'm calling.
I can't. No, bro. Don't call me. My phone is dead.
Gentlemen, I love you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Love you guys.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you, everybody. We will do this next time, we promise. Check out Gentlemen's Corner Wednesday, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
What up, big dog? What up, Big Feet? What up, dog? Miss Mo. Happy birthday. What up, big dog? Appreciate you.